Tom had always been a practical man. Ghosts, goblins, and the like were the stuff of cheap thrillers and late-night TV. So when the real estate agent had hinted at the house's checkered past, he dismissed it as a sales tactic. The place was a steal, a Victorian with good bones, and that was all that mattered. The neighborhood was old, the houses standing as sentinels of a bygone era. It was quiet, too quiet. A stillness hung in the air, broken only by the distant rumble of traffic. People were scarce, their faces turned away as they hurried quickly past, their eyes avoiding him. He chalked it up to small-town reticence. A reluctance to engage with strangers was all it was. The house itself was a different matter. It groaned and settled, as if protesting its violation. Dust-coated memories clung to every corner, a palpable sense of history that was both intriguing and unsettling. He'd found strange objects hidden in the walls, a tarnished locket, a child's toy, a faded photograph of people unknown. They were relics of lives lived, stories untold. Days turned into weeks as Tom immersed himself in the renovation. The house began to slowly reveal its secrets layer by layer. Beneath the peeling wallpaper were vibrant patterns, long-forgotten styles. Hidden compartments in the walls held dusty letters and yellowed newspapers. And then there were the sounds, creaks and groans that defied explanation, whispers carried on the wind and the occasional phantom footstep echoing through the empty rooms. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the house in an eerie orange glow, Tom was working in the attic, the rafters thick with dust, and the air was still and heavy. As he reached for a loose board, his hand brushed against something cold and hard. His heart pounded as he pulled it free. It was a small wooden box, its surface adorned with intricate carvings. His curiosity piqued, he pried it open. Inside, nestled in a bed of faded silk, was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. The ink faded and blurred. With trembling hands, he opened it to the first page. The words were written in a flowing script, the language elegant, yet filled with a sense of dread. It was a diary, a record of a life lived in this very house. The writer, a woman named Eleanor, described a growing sense of unease, of being watched. She wrote of shadows that moved when no one was there, of cold spots in warm rooms, and of a pervasive feeling of dread. As Tom read on, the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Eleanor's fear grew with each passing day. She spoke of a darkness within the house, a malevolent presence that seemed to feed on her insanity. Her entries, becoming increasingly frantic, filled with desperate pleas for help. The final entry was a single chilling word: "It's coming." A chill ran down Tom's spine. He closed the journal, his heart pounding in his chest. He was alone in the house, the only living soul for miles, and something dark and ancient was watching him. The house seemed to close in around him, the shadows deepening, the silence more oppressive. A cold draft swept through the attic, sending a shiver down his spine. He was alone, trapped in a house with a dark history, and he was beginning to believe the stories. As the night wore on, the house creaked and groaned, the sounds taking on a sinister quality. Shadows danced on the walls, grotesque and menacing. Tom gripped the baseball bat he'd brought with him, his knuckles white. Then he heard it, a faint scratching sound coming from the walls. It was a soft, persistent sound like nails on a chalkboard. His heart pounded in his chest. Something alive was in the walls, something alive and hungry. Fear, cold and clammy, enveloped him. He was trapped, a prisoner in his own house, and the darkness was closing in. The scratching grew louder, more insistent. It seemed to be coming from everywhere at once, a cacophony of desperate clawing. The house creaked and groaned, the old timbers straining against some unseen force. A cold, clammy sweat broke out on Tom's brow. He was alone, trapped in a house that was alive with evil. Then a shape emerged from the shadows. At first it was just a dark mass, but as it moved closer, its form became clear. It was tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that seemed to stretch and contort. Its face was a mask of pure, unadulterated evil. its eyes burning with a cold, inhuman light. Tom swung the baseball bat he had picked up, but his blow was feeble. The creature just laughed, a sound like ice grating on stone. Its claws reached out, long and sharp, and with a sickening crunch they tore into Tom's flesh. Pain exploded through him, a white-hot agony that consumed his senses. He fell to the floor, his body limp. The creature loomed over him as shadows blotting out the last remnants of light. Then as darkness claimed him, Tom heard a whisper, a chilling promise. "You're home now," it said. The next morning, a couple walked past the vacant lot, where Tom had said he was working on remodeling a house. The husband remarked to his wife, "Didn't we hear a guy say the other day that he was doing some remodeling here? Well, there hasn't been anything here for more than 30 years since the original house burned down." They both looked quickly at each other, silent for a moment, eyes wide, and began to walk quickly down the road and turn the corner. The vacant lot shimmered with an eerie glow, and a ghostly shape walked back and forth. It was Tom, who tried to call to them. He was trapped in another age and another time, still looking for his house.